votre au quotidien. C'est ça très
SonarFeed! Woo!
Sounds like a jolly little picnic group.
Hello and welcome to SonarFeed. This is episode 240. There's a 69 vote minimum.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm Dave Clark. I guess I'm the introduction guy today.
Might as well go for it.
You can follow me at Better Than. To my right, we'll just go right into the guests since we're in a different order than usual. To my right, your left is...
Steve Strange, guitarist of Ultravox. This is Wade Weber at Wade Weber 4. Twitter thing, I think. I'm told I have a Twitter account.
It is.
You use it every few days.
Yeah, I do. Typically to retweet. I'm not terribly creative.
For the audience, if you aren't familiar, Wade Weber is currently the assistant coach for S2, former U18, U19 coach for the academy, and one of the former Sounders players that contributes to the pre-half and post-game for the first team. So we're going to talk about all of those subjects and more.
That's right. I was hired because of my voice, and that's why I'm still on the radio. I've not made the jump over to TV. Face not required.
All the way over to the other of the split screen.
So you're asking me to start?
I guess, yeah. Let's go
making
that
the
way.
logical move
So that we can
down.
get-
So I'm Adam Weigel on Twitter, and to this side of me, that side of you.
Wow, that totally made sense.
Wow. Mark Nesteroff, also known as El Tigre, SSFC Fody 13, and I'm never drinking again.
I'm sorry. Top Hero, a.k.a. a number of things on the internet.
AKA.
So I want to get this out of the way real quick because people are already asking.
They are complaining.
Yeah, we had a vote for.
There's a 69
title.
vote minimum.
Yep. There's a vote for we vote for the title, and unfortunately, we
Y'all
only
failed.
got 67 votes. So
Them's the rules.
them
The
breaks.
consolation winner was more points than Toronto,
Yeah.
which was leading with 42% of the votes.
Wade, my submission came in last.
I voted roll for initiative. That was me. Was I the only one
No,
voting for that?
7%.
Dave was the other one.
It was us.
7% of 67 voters failed in that horrible, horrible try
Mine was
to
good.
vote for a show title.
Mine was good.
We should just call every week, Mark's never drinking again. Mark was recapping. We'll talk about some of the details from yesterday because, as we all know, 1 o'clock matches on sunny days when you win do not end well for anyone, ever. You could not drink and something dumb will happen to you.
Yep.
Probably because other people are drinking. But
Yep.
yeah, but Mark was recapping his story to me earlier about what he did after I saw him. And then I was like, what time was that? And he's like, oh, that was at 8. And then they went somewhere else. And then I think you may have gone to another place after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it did not go well. And for those of you that don't know, when he's not drinking, Mark helps sell produce and has to go to work at what time?
6. 5:30
Yeah,
sometimes.
so...
Is that 6 Pacific time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Early enough.
AM.
Yeah.
So that happened. So anyway, we're here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about soccer. Mark's going to, I think, take a work phone call or something.
You can take it on the air.
Yeah, just take it live. Oh, I think it was his dad. Even better.
That's more important.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll talk a little bit of soccer, have some positive Sounders news for once in a minute. So we'll talk a little bit about yesterday, talk a little bit about LAFC coming up this week, which is going to be a big deal. We could touch on S2, talk some broadcasting stuff.
Why would we talk about S2 today?
Why not?
Okay.
I mean, there's an excuse.
Oh, sure.
We'll find one.
Come up with something.
We'll come up with something.
Yeah.
So we will probably cede the floor to you for some time. But what we like to do is tell people they can start at the beginning. Some people go way back
Ross
in the
Fletcher
crates.
was when he was an infant. You
Yeah.
don't need to go that far back.
I don't remember quite that far back. Yeah.
He got pretty serious. But yeah, we know who you are, obviously, but not everybody in Sounders Land may.
Yes.
So, if you give everybody a little bit of some color on
Pedigree.
life, and you're obviously from down here. We were just talking about that before the show started.
All right, yeah. Now?
Go for it.
Yeah,
Now.
There's no time like the present,
Do
or
it.
it's best to begin at the beginning.
This is time.
Yeah, so I am a Puget Sound native. I guess I wasn't born on the water, but I was born in Renton, of all places. Dave, you actually had the name of the hospital?
It's Valley. Back then, it was Valley General.
Yeah, well, anyway, it was in Renton,
Yeah.
and I was born during the Johnson administration, which is a long time ago, and I made my way to Federal Way, or my family did, my parents did. Went to college at the University of Portland. Don't hate me.
We were going to discuss some Portland things,
I was
so.
captain of the Portland Timbers in 1989. I'm not proud. It was a job, right? So
I mean, someone had to be.
Beggars couldn't be choosers. Probably still can't be choosers. And eventually, the soccer world. That's an interesting time historically. That late '80s. Well, actually, all the '80s were a little interesting, but '80s to mid '90s, there were no reasonable professional soccer jobs. So I actually I got married somewhat young. I'm still married, and my wife sitting over yonder. It'd be 28 years in August. But
that's awesome.
But she, I had to get a proper job because chasing the soccer dream just wasn't working. And she was pregnant, and one thing led to another. I became a teacher and would have had a career in teaching had Alan Hinton not come calling in 93, 94, winter of 93, 94, and said he's resurrecting the name the Sounders, and asked if I was interested, and I was, and I left teaching to play. I played for the Sounders for a few years. I entered Major League Soccer at 30 because it started when I was 30, so there was a lot of years before MLS started. And played for a few years, ripped up my other knee. Dr. Morris, in fact, Jordan's dad, did the ACL on my right knee, just like he did. He couldn't do the ACL on his son's right knee because, of course, there's a conflict of interest. I think I don't know how that works. I would think I'd want my dad to do my knee, right? Who has a more compelling interest in doing it well? But
there's probably some insurance rule about that.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Medical standard of ethics.
Exactly. Major League
What's
Soccer
that?
came. I went to Dallas in the draft. I was a 30-year-old rookie
And that was
in
the
Major
burn.
League Soccer. Yeah, I was burned. Yeah, I played for Dallas. We won the Open Cup. I then was taken again in the expansion draft to Miami, of all places. David Beckham returning there soon, so I hear.
Maybe.
I'll believe it when I see it. It's a terrible place. All my friends, if you're in South Florida, I don't have many left, but they're anywhere, but especially in South Florida. It's not a good place for sports teams in general. But yeah, I went to Miami then for a couple of years, hurt my other knee, came home. Long-winded way of winding up where I am right now on this wonderful little bench. This is a good, almost Oktoberfest-style table at the Berliner in Renton.
These tables have
Inside are
seen,
some legit like Oktoberfest.
Oh
Yeah.
Heavy.
Well, yeah, this is their outdoor furniture. Yeah.
they've seen some stuff.
They have
these
seen
tables.
some stuff.
So,
You've won a few trophies. We were just going over that a little bit for the
I have a
A-League or
couple.
the APSL
Yeah,
era.
The pre-MLS years, yeah, a few of those. I've got the rings, so it was cool. We got when Sounders won in 2016, staff members got rings, and they're quite fancy. And I don't know if they're real diamonds, because if they are, I'm impressed. I mean, I have a really fancy-looking ring. But when I played, we actually won 2 championships back in the A-League, and so I have rings for those. And when you compare them side by side, they're like the poor distant relations of the really rich uncle. They're these 2 little rings with a little sliver of what might be cubic zirconium. Might be. It might just be dust. My eyes are bad these days. So.
Like if I clean that, it might go away.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm not cleaning it because it looks fancy. So yes, I did win a couple of those trophies. I'm also on the broadcasts. I am one of the pre, half, and post-game voices that you'll hear. I sound especially good in CenturyLink bathrooms because the feed is
That's
piped
where
through.
most of us hear you.
I've been told that that's where I'm at my best, which is all sorts of unnerving for everyone involved.
That's where I learn all the things that I missed because of flags that I was waving.
So
I was probably waving.
Can I interject because I did see one of the potential show titles was let's talk about flags. Was that one of them? So my wife and I have owned season tickets since '09. They're right next to the great general admission ECS section, right next to it. But they're seats 3, 4, 5, and 6, and just across the aisle. And the flags have been a source of much consternation and concern over the years. There's been like fistfights about it.
Yes.
Yeah, like proper brouhahas.
Flags have to be 5 seats in.
They have
From the-
rules
They've
now.
still
'Cause
they've still obscured vision of goals at times, which is
They do.
Yeah.
Probably
I now
for
sit
the
in the
goal
press
scorers
box.
sometimes.
I'm in the press box, which is a terrible place to watch a game. It's sterile. They actually go on before the game and say, "We need to remind you that this is a working press environment, and cheering or rooting of any kind is actively discouraged." And so no one stands up and applauds or cheers. There's no singing in the press box, except by Alan Hinton because
he gets to
Alan
cheer.
gets to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's not a.
That's about right.
It's kind of funny. Your two game day experiences are about as far from each other as they could be.
Yes. So
You're
my
like
my
an
wife
aisle
deals with
across
the
the way.
flags. I go get a Starbucks at they have a little stand in the press box. So
Yeah,
wonderful.
I've only done the CenturyLink press box like 3 or 4 times because, for me, game day.
It's not game day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Shouldn't be anyway. But who am I to say?
You just did. That's cool. David, did you have something you wanted to get into?
Oh, I was going to suggest it. You should see the press box down at Cheney.
Oh, okay.
Just because the angle is a little bit different for observing the game.
Would it be better for baseball?
No.
It's the radio booth for baseball.
Yeah, the left field area is partially obscured,
Right.
even for baseball. So
If
there
you
are
lean
times
out the window, does it help?
He'll have James hold his feet.
we locate Andrew in the spot where he would have the best view of what's going on, and I use the replay monitor frequently. But it also we haven't popped open the windows yet for game day because it's been a little chilly and rainy.
A little
the
chilly
last
and a
two
little rainy.
have been very rainy.
Yeah.
But we're looking forward to May 6th and May 12th are the next 2 home games.
It's going to be nice, too.
And it's going to be stuff like this, and we're popping those windows all the way open.
It's going to sound
'Cause
fantastic.
we want the life of the stadium because we know when you look back to that opener, when you get that 6,000 people,
Right.
and I think those May weekend games
Yeah.
with sunshine,
Yep.
we'll get back to 6,000, and that's going to be an awesome crowd.
We're hoping people aren't too hungover from Cinco de Mayo to not celebrate Seis de Mayo. I'm really hoping that becomes a new Corona holiday or something.
Seis tu de Mayo.
Seis tu. Sí.
Like American novice holiday number 3 of the year. It's like Valentine's Day in restaurants.
St. Patrick's
Cinco
Day.
de Mayo and St. Patrick's Day are all, kind of a disaster to say the least.
When those holidays wind up on a Monday, we don't come to the bar. We don't do the podcast. Doesn't happen if St. Patrick's Day or Cinco de Mayo are on a Monday. We just know enough not to be at a bar.
Yeah.
Or
it just seems like
wisdom.
a poor life choice.
Yeah.
Also, Dave really wants to go out and drink with all the.
I do. I have to go
Novices.
represent my
So that's a good weekend, though. So it's Hat Week. Sounders Crew.
It is Hat Week.
Sounders Crew May 5th.
Saturday. S2 Sunday.
Against Sacramento.
Good times.
Sacramento's a good challenge too. 'Cause,
Unbeaten right now.
Yeah, one of 5 unbeatens in the USL, and they lead the West.
Yeah.
Louisville, also unbeaten, leads the East.
Yeah, and they feel aggrieved that they were not awarded an MLS franchise yet. So
They are
we'll see how that goes.
they are impatiently waiting.
They are in their little Papa Murphy's stadium. I was disappointed to learn that the post-game meal at Papa Murphy's Park was not pizza. It was a macaroni and cheese, which was not bad. It was a spicy macaroni and cheese.
Do you have to bake it yourself?
The post-game meal. They didn't have to take
It wasn't as warm as I'd like. It could have used a little reheat.
See?
Yes.
Are you looking forward to playing some games that are like dry and have normal weather conditions? Because you had snow lining the field in Colorado Springs.
Yes.
Your last 2 home games were
moist.
And even the Sacramento game before
Yo,
that.
you want to change
they
the
had
show title?
2 inches
Moist.
of rain within the previous 24 hours.
That was bad. Yeah, Sacramento was bad. There were our equipment manager, Mitchell Carnifex. I've asked him what the etymology of carnifex is, but he couldn't tell me. He said,
I'm writing that down for a wizard.
He's Mitchell Carnifex, wonderful guy, but he was testing how damp the ground was in Sacramento, and I didn't know he was doing this, but he threw 2 balls really high in the air right behind me, and they splashed, and I was covered in a brown kind of mud, brackish water, I think would be the correct description. But yeah, so it's been 4 really poor surfaces that we've played on. But we got a win and a draw in the last 2, and the team's really young. Started 6 teenagers in I think opening game, which is nothing to be kind of sneezed at. And we're playing against like Luke Vercoloni for Colorado's 36. Going against Azriel Gonzalez, who is 16. There's a gulf in experience.
Slight disparity.
A little bit, because the USL has a mix of independent teams, affiliated teams, and then these owned or hybrid style. And I know one of the things that I do during my prep, every average age of the starting lineup, how many are still teenagers for both sides? And like even what's the last home game? They had 3 teens on the roster, but not in the
Real
18.
Monarchs.
Yeah. So even the Monarchs, who are a wholly owned subsidiary of RSL, they're still running out 22 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
And your seasoned veterans outside of
David Estrada,
David,
who's been a wonderful. He's a great human, but he's also still very effective as a player and a good mentor to our younger players. But yeah, he's 30, and the rest of the group is the oldest is 23.
Yeah,
the oldest is 23,
and he has 2.5. This is his 3rd season, but his first season was 4 games, right?
Correct.
Tito with FC Cincinnati, and then you guys all last year, and then now.
Yeah.
We're just babbling over here about S2. Are we good?
It's good. You're doing great.
Can we ask you about a couple players?
Yes.
And now I understand their coach and their organizational thoughts. Now, you talked about David a little bit. Felix Chinkham is somebody who this year is really taking to more of a target style. His hold-up play has really improved. What is it about him that intrigues you as a potential MLS player?
He's a fascinating guy. His English, of the 3 French speakers that we had coming out of last season into this season, Rodrigue Eli, the big center back, Denso Ulysses, the right back, he was the furthest behind in his mastery of English. So we offer English classes. He goes to them. He's as people would be, he's a little embarrassed that he doesn't speak it as well as others. He understands more than he says. But in the last 2 weeks, something's happened, and he's suddenly started to speak more in English and respond when you're giving him very primitive instructions, because you assume he doesn't understand, and he responds in a way that indicates he knows way more than he's letting on. The thing that intrigues me about him is once that language barrier is mastered, some of the concepts that we want him to do will go from being lines on a whiteboard or us moving magnets around on a magnetic field into us actually being able to describe the type of run and be more subtle in our description. He very much was relying on what he brought with him from Cameroon, because our instruction, we had to filter it through translators and WhatsApp or whatever, however you translate, right? So, and I'm taking the Duolingo French on my phone. I'm working hard. I'm trying to bridge the gap. But Felix is a back to goal striker, and once he figures out that he'll get paid a lot of money if he's really good in the box, and it doesn't matter what he does outside the box. If he gets in the box and can convert, it's a rare skill. He's not especially fast, tremendously strong, great back to goal, but he doesn't have blazing speed. I think that's one thing I thought he had when he came in, but that's not what we need. We have very fast wings who will get him to great positions, Hines and Hope out to serve him balls, and if he can one-touch finish, he's got a lot of goals in him. And so that for me is the big thing, is just getting him to understand that he doesn't have to be anything but a finisher in this group. Hold the ball up, give it to somebody else, move forward,
They're going to get it back to him.
And it's at that point, it's just about angles and deception of running. And soccer's all geometry. I learned that at one point. Where it's all about the angle of your run and where the ball is coming and how you have to be angled when you receive it to be able to make the right contact. I was never good at math, but in school. But if it had been soccer related, I could. Who knows? I might be a mathematician.
You've talked to me a little bit about Sam Rogers in the past and about developing kind of that attitude. Because his conversion to center back is just over a year. Like, he was essentially a defensive mid when you were his academy coach, and then you started playing him in the back a little bit.
Yep.
And then last year was his first year full time as a pure defender.
Yeah, he's still 18, which, by the time this season is done, he will have had 50 professional starts at the USL level, and he'll be 19 and a half, right? And at that point, I think that he'll have the requisite experience for the first team to make a decision, is this the kind of guy we want to offer a homegrown contract to? Center back is a position that will be of need. I know right now with Marshall, Torres, Kim, Alfaro, and Gustav Svensson as a very serviceable fifth option. You've got, and those aren't in any particular order. I just want to, just so everyone knows, I did not just rank them.
But only
you want to make a graphic? Make a graphic with the ranking.
Wade Weber says.
There's a couple.
Wade center backs ranked.
There's a couple that are, I don't want to say the wrong side of 30, because I'm the wrong side of 50 if you're looking at it from one way, right? So but Sam is young. He's got he's got all of the attributes that you want: size, athleticism, technique. Very, very good on the ball. One of the better passers of the ball on the team, let alone in the defense.
That's one of the advantages of him moving from a midfield role to a defender.
Exactly. He's had to manipulate the ball his whole life, and now that he's in, and speaking as an old defender, it's the easiest position to play if you can pass. If you can trap and pass, it's super easy to play it when you have the ball. When you don't have the ball, it's not so easy because you actually have to have some inner evil. Right, and you and I have spoken about this, and I will not use some of the language that I used in our private conversation, but everyone's got evil in them. It's in Sam. It's in Mother Teresa, for crying out loud. It just says she learned to suppress it. Right, everybody's got it. And when you play as a central defender, there has to be you've got to tread that line, and sometimes you have to be intimidating, and oftentimes it is the threat of grievous bodily harm that is more important than the actual doing of the damage, right? It's just this notion that Roman Torres walks up to you and you're going to back away because of his stature, and he looks frightening, right? He looks like he could kill you.
Well, the first team
he's a very nice guy. He's a pleasant man, but he doesn't look like it, right? So Sam is really nice, a Ballard kid, local boy, who is still learning to find his inner evil. And I think that's my only job this season with S2, is to help Sam Rogers do that, because he could be a Sounder for another 15 years if he finds that. He's got everything else once he gets a hold of that and can harness it.
He's 19 next month.
Yes.
And yet he's not even close to the youngest professional that you have.
Ray Serrano.
You have Serrano, Azriel, and Afonso Campo now, all 16 and under.
Yeah.
3 of them.
Ray from Moses Lake. He's one of those, when you watch him play, Ray Serrano, there's you're reminded why you loved the game in the beginning. His play is like an expression of joy, and that's getting really philosophical, but he smiles a lot, and he's happy when he plays. And if you watch him play with the U17s, and by the way, he's even playing up on the U17s. That's how young he is. when you watch him play, there's just his movement and his ability to score and confidence is something that it's infectious. He's still a long way from you'd say, okay, when's he going to make any kind of big impact on S2? It's once he discovers that confidence that he has at U17, he went to the first team preseason in Chula Vista, and first team was impressed with him.
You mentioned that Sam will have about 50 games as a pro by the end of this year, and he won't yet be 20.
Yeah.
And then you think about Campo Chavez, Gonzalez, Serrano, and by the time they're 20, 120 games or so?
Yeah. Well,
if everything progresses
correct.
as expected.
Yeah. Which is impossible to. It's the old. I'm holding two seeds, one in each hand, and which seed will produce the greatest flower, right? It's really difficult to know. The conditions have to be right, and I'm not a horticulturalist. I'm not a botanist, but I do know that the guy that you think is a lock at 15 is not always a lock. So we're learning personality plays a big role in projecting. Their tolerance of failure. Some players fail and they get criticized and they shut down. Some see it as a learning opportunity and they continually embrace failure as that next step. And we're hoping that the ones we picked have that attitude.
We've
There's
seen
a
that,
lot of S2 talk.
we've seen that attitude both at S2 and in the first team with young fullbacks lately. Denzo Ulysses and Nuhu both recently had poor games.
You said it. I agree.
Since then,
Get back on defense.
they both had Nuhu's game
Against Minnesota
just yesterday was great. But maybe not great, but it was good. It was good. He didn't make those same mistakes. It was more of what you expect from him. And we had talked previously, Denzo Ulysses, after against Swope Park, he has rebounded from that.
Yeah.
In his last two games, he had the suspension and then played the next two. He looked like every bit the player that earned that USL contract.
Yeah, he's got the athletic profile that you want in an outside back. Speaking Denzo here, and Nuhu, he's not much older than Denzo. Nuhu's only still 20.
Yeah,
he's not turned 21 yet. So he's a young man, can't even enjoy a beverage, but inconsistency is the curse of youth, right? Like I'm older, I'm very consistent, consistently average, right? When you're young, like Nuhu can have a game where you think, this is it, man. The European clubs are swirling and all that, and the Sounders having to fight to hang on to him, and then he has another game where it's like, all right, well, maybe he's not so good. And as a defender, more than anything, you need consistency. The positions demand it. If you're forward and are inconsistent and you score every other game, or miserable one and get a goal the next one, miserable goal, you will have a career that will earn you a lot of money.
Every other game? I mean,
that's
You're a goal leader.
Correct.
Where do we sign this player?
Exactly.
In fact, can you find in every other game forward by May 1st?
For a defender, if you're really bad every other game, you will be unemployed, right? You will not have a job because that's a position where you can't afford inconsistency. So the problem with playing a young player is that you're going to see a lot of those mistakes graphically depicted, or in front of 40,000 people, you're going to see mistakes. DeAndre Yedlin, let's be honest, and we all love him, and his career is we're happy to see it, but his first year as a right back for the Sounders was littered with positioning mistakes, mistakes of over-aggression, the things that young people do. There was no S2 for DeAndre to play in, right? They threw him in there. Aaron Johansson, I think, was the right back at the time, and he went back to Sweden. They had no cover. So there you go, DeAndre. Go learn on the job.
Your backup is you. You're your own backup.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. If you play bad, you're going to play the next game. So, but we accept that. that if you have some athletic, if your skill set is like Nuhu's, then you're going to be able to work your way out of some difficulties. Do you think the problem, not problem, but for me, Nuhu's challenge is Jovan Jones. The guy that just left was the best left back in the league.
Yeah.
Certainly going forward, not in a one-on-one sense, but he wasn't bad in one-on-one, but certainly going forward. So when you have to replace a guy that got you so many assists, was so composed when he went forward, that's the hardest part of the game to get, and he's always going to pale probably in comparison to Jones.
It does set up an interesting measuring stick, whether it's the amateur like us in the stands or the coaching staff themselves. They have to remember Nuhu versus their idea of what he can be, as opposed to Nuhu versus what Jovan was last year.
Well, and that's you're every week going to make that immediate comparison because it's so fresh, Jones. So, I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I think the difference is if you're making a mistake here and there, and you get beat and you don't let up a goal, is very different than you did something really idiotic twice in a 30-minute time period, Well, but what you want in that situation, though, is for the player to come back the next match and not be a disaster, because stuff like that gets in your head. I mean, you see that in any sport. Catchers get the yips and can't throw the ball back. And
Mackie Sasser.
Yeah, it happens. So for someone to come back, I mean, it's good to get out there the next week and have a decent game. That tells you something.
Yeah, that 2 bad games in a row. That's where
you start to worry.
Starts being
especially when your team's not great.
It's strange that Nuhu can thank Waylon Francis's hamstring because Schmetzer would have had a choice, right?
Yep.
You
and it's been even rotation between the two of them.
You commit a couple of those errors, and the coach doesn't put you in, and Francis has a good game, and you may be out of the team for the rest of the year.
You might have a seasoned veteran, if Waylon was healthy and beat him out, you might have had a fourth potential left back player down there
at S2.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a ton of guys with left back experience on that roster that you can play around.
I think
with.
Nuhu would have got the nod.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit.
I'm thinking.
We do have a question.
Oh, we have questions. Go for it,
Adam. You want to?
Let's not have
you want to handle that, or you want me to do it? Adam's not paying attention.
You should do it.
All right, I'll read
Adam's
it.
doing something different.
So we got a question from Bregel. Is it Hines or Hines?
Nick Hines.
Hines. He says he's listed as a defender on the roster, but he's not really been playing that position. What's his position for S2?
That's a great question. There is some internal debate. In fact, Dave and I, this wasn't the internal debate. This was sort of external. If we're
it's
putting
weird. Sometimes
proximity on it.
Semi-internal.
Yeah, correct. Nick is, for us, a left wing. You could call him a left midfielder if you want. He has experience at left back, both at the academy and for a while at Akron. He went to no
one's heard of it. Yeah, no one's heard of Akron. It is, I believe, the Zips.
The Akron Zips. So, but he also then played some attacking midfield. He's the fastest player, certainly on our team, and one of the fastest we've seen in the USL. And the first team are they wouldn't mind a really fast wing. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that they struggle to get behind defenses that Morris is out. I know they're looking their DP targets have different profiles. I don't know who they are by name, but I know sort of what they're looking for positionally. Nick, it'd be great if Nick could develop into a assist-making, goal-scoring wing, and we're going to give him every opportunity to do that.
So you're saying he's going to become Marco Papa?
Faster.
More. It's funny when people ask me. The simple way to describe him was DeAndre Yedlin if DeAndre had become a winger rather than
and was left-footed.
Yeah, on the opposite side. The other guy that you could compare him to is if somebody had tried to make Steve Zakuani a left back.
Curious.
Because the way and some of the runs that you expect him to make, and maybe I'm spoiled because I talked to Steve before the last game just about this based on our conversation. Some of the runs that you want to see from him and some of the aggression that you want to see from him are those steps that Steve took from year 1 to year 2. You want him to look for cutback passes, not crosses.
Yep.
You want him to angle more towards the near post rather than on
The corner flag?
touchline. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want him involved in the box.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that's very Steve, and he's got that kind of speed. Not with the ball at his feet, because Steve ran faster with the ball at his feet than is reasonable. But his off-ball movement is really all about
Yeah, well,
those
you
3,
can't,
4, 5
you can't
strides,
catch him.
and he's away.
He can't catch him, and it's unfortunate because down in Sacramento we were down to 9 men. By the way, I will
That
say
was on brand though for Sounders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know there was some. That
That was the best tweet ever.
Yeah. There wasn't a memo or anything. It turned out that one of the red cards was rescinded. They gave the yellow to the wrong guy. Right?
They even
How
showed
do you
him
do that?
pointing at Narbonne.
I know. It's like,
And then
this
holds
guy
up the
commits the
red to
foul.
the other guy.
He gives the red to the second yellow and the red to Ellie.
It's really easy to get those two confused. They look so similar.
Oh yeah. Francisco, the 5 foot something from Panama, and Ellie, the 6 foot something from Cameroon. Yeah. They're twins.
Sounds about right.
Separated,
More like that movie from the
separated,
80s,
yes,
Twins.
yes.
Danny DeVito and Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, no. Hines has a electric pace, and the old unteachables. He's got them, but he also in that Sacramento game could have got the equalizer with the just because he simply outran everyone to a ball we thumped over the top. The ugly Route 1 stuff. We had 9 men, so I'm not making I'm not looking for apologies.
That's a
I'm
good
not
way to
making
win,
them.
though.
Right.
Route 1 is
You're
your
gonna dump and chase. Okay.
Really fast guy up front, kick it long, and hope for the best. And he was in 1-on-1 and just didn't convert. And then down in Colorado, same thing. He came on late and two runs around the edge, and we were down to 10 men at that point and couldn't convert. So he's not a finisher yet.
He put one about 6 inches wide in the last home game.
And he also in the opening game got the winner.
Yeah.
A wonderful goal. So
that interplay with David Olson.
We think he's got it in him. So it's a question of drawing it out and helping him be more comfortable in attacking areas because for some people they fluff their lines when they reach that stage of the field.
One of the things when S2 started, there was talk about the integration of tactics and whatnot, and the first team has this very unique personality within American soccer where he is both a forward and a midfielder at the same time. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out how S2 would get that guy. But in some ways, David Olson plays as a USL version of what Clint Dempsey is. He's trying stuff out there. He might... Sometimes he plays a little too complex, but he does nifty little back heels,
Yes, he does.
sombreros, spin moves.
He needs a Rabona.
I wouldn't be surprised if
That's in there.
he practiced it.
He calls nutmegs on the field, at training. Just as Clint can be a frustrating character because I hate to say that. Well, how do I say this? That I was kind of raised in an English soccer environment. Not necessarily my father; he's not English, but the coaches that sort of
Structure.
do as you're told. Don't do anything tricky. That's why Glenn Hoddle didn't have enough caps for England. Paul Gascoigne, they never knew where to play him because it's like he's too good, right? But I need him to be less good and more of an obedient, rule-following, hard-working, and so there is that sort of fight between the creative and the industrious, and David, I think that's an interesting comparison because he plays a similar position, sort of withdrawn striker, not really a true 9. He doesn't have a ton of pace, but he's not slow and he's good in the air, but you wouldn't know it, and he shoots with both feet. The most technical guy on S2, far and away. You could ping a ball at his shoulder and he'll pull it down with his foot like a butterfly net, Not that I'm advocating to capture butterflies or anything like that.
If there's anything I wasn't expecting, like the political response to, it was that.
Okay. So, I'm not sure if there's a large anti-butterfly capture segment
This
of the
group's probably
population. I'm just trying to be politically
butterfly
correct here.
capture.
Just catch and release. That's
Yeah.
that's
Catch
the
and
key.
release. All right, there you go.
But
Yeah, David's got that in him. He's got super soft feet. He can do just about anything with both feet, and has a big upside. It's just, who's willing to take a chance? Unless you're Clint Dempsey and are getting goals with it. A lot of coaches want people they can trust, and trust means you're going to work hard. To most coaches, we want David to try some silly things. We do, because we think that's where he's at his best, and we do think he's got something that that the first team know about, and is there room for it? That's up to them, really. But we have discussions about him, and fun player to watch.
He can get funky, like
George Clinton.
To me, if he was an MLS, look, yeah. Like if he was an MLS player and you drop him in like the final 15, like that second sub, and it's just kind of a like, you know what, we have no idea what's going on with this game. Let's try something different because everything else isn't working, kind of thing. And I think that now I'm a little bit spoiled. David Olsen's been on the show. We're friends of him. He's talked about his circumstances, so I'm a little bit biased about that as well. In fact, this was like the first place that he had publicly talked about his father. But I think give him 15 minutes, and you have no idea what we can. Like, you're down 2 goals, and you're like, what are we going to do? You know what? That's kind of where you'd find.
He's got bicycle kicks in his bag of tricks, scorpion kicks, back heels, flicks. And he can work hard. I think that what I was proudest of, one of my responsibilities with S2 is that I have to write the internal match report. Mm-hmm. Hutch gives me a lot of tasks. I have to exchange the rosters before the game. One of our home games, by the way, was refereed by Daniel Radford of Red Guard
Yes,
Wedding.
it was.
We love that guy.
It was all about obeying the rules with this gentleman. So anyway, one of the things I do is write the match report. And I just wrote Saturday's report today. I was a little tardy. They give me as much time as I need. But my comments on Olsen, I write about each player, the other things, but was that I don't think he's ever worked harder defensively. We were down to 10 men, but Nick Hines and Hopeau were cramping and just, altitude and all that, and struggling, really properly struggling. And so Olsen had to cover for them, and the fact that we were down to 10 men against a team that was used to the conditions. And at the end of the game, I thought there was something wrong with him. He was pale, couldn't catch his breath at all, didn't eat that night. We were worried he was like, we're going to have to take him to the hospital. He was fine. Yeah, by the time he got back to Seattle the next day, it was all good. But I don't think he's ever worked that hard as a defender. His defending on set pieces, best on the team. He made first contact on, I think, half a dozen set pieces defensively. And those are the elements, the hard work, the defensive effort, all of that kind of stuff. He does that. He's got the skill set from the attacking side of things to find a spot at MLS. Seattle has a roster that may not have a spot for David, but there is an MLS team out there that he could play for.
Speaking of the MLS team, you talked Dallas. You won an Open Cup with them. You've seen teams in this league. You've been watching it for some time now. You've seen teams struggle for a few weeks, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. I might be cautious, and I might just, some people call me an apologist, but I look at the team and I see all these injuries and the suspensions and all that.
That was like a good intro. I might be cautious. Some people call me an apologist. Just lay down some more there.
You want me to spit? No.
Methodist?
Do you think they're through it and we're going to be back to seeing the team that preseason people expected to challenge for a Western Conference title, or is there still a couple things?
As an old central defender, Dave, I'm a natural pessimist. I always think the worst, so I don't think you're ever through anything. I think that they demonstrated that they're a good team, and they're which they've been since the beginning. The injuries are the issue of the season. They're absolutely the issue of the season. The fact that they're trying to compete on 2 fronts and doing it properly, in my opinion, where they prioritized the Champions League. I think that until an MLS team, until they consistently win it, I know in America, I have friends who don't follow MLS. Honestly, I do. Who are big football fans or baseball fans, and they just don't get how you would not put your strongest team on the field for every league game. And when you're playing, 4 days later in a different country, in a competition that could get you access to playing against the champion of Europe, you have to prioritize that. Those opportunities don't come along so often. So to me, the beginning of the season's all been about that. They've been really snake bitten. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been bitten by a snake.
They've
but I
also
imagine
bitten themselves
it's
a few times.
debilitating. Well, the red cards, the red cards are problematic
Thanks, Woody.
for sure. I think Schmetzer's taken the right tone on that, just to say it's unacceptable. And back in my day, you could get away with murder, well, nearly. I mean, you'd go over the ball into a guy's knee. And the ref would say, "If you do that again, son, I
might
swear
call a foul."
I'll book you." Yeah. And now Dempsey is literally slapping a guy's hand away who's holding him, and even if he hit him, right? Okay, book him. He's not really hurt him, right? And so I have a lot of issues with how sensitive discipline is these days, where it's no big deal to send a guy off. I don't think Leerdam slapped him in the face.
That one's pretty easy to
Well,
figure
yeah,
out.
The face thing is basically like touch anyone's
you
face.
touch somebody in
you're
the face,
done.
and you get tossed out.
Unless your name
I
is
get
Alex
that.
Roldan. Because if you touch him in the face, he is going to put you on
body
the
slam.
ground.
Yeah.
The body slam. I saw that.
It was
that.
We have it.
We have the
it.
video. We can't see the video, but
Yeah.
people online are seeing the video.
Yeah, we've got that right here.
It's
It's
hardy.
pretty fantastic. You can stay down there.
That's what they teach you at Seattle University.
Dude,
right?
that's like a jiu-jitsu or a
The
keto
Jesuits
move right
are
there. You're like,
serious.
It is.
oh, you're coming in with me there? I'm just...
rolled
I loved
on
it.
master of self-defense, he's exerted. He's used it's physics. He's used his body weight against the other. It's perfect. I don't know what I'm
It's a little
talking
brother move, too.
about. Although, is he taller than Christian?
He might be bigger than
Yeah.
Christian,
So
but
you must say
now-
younger brother, not little brother.
he'll always be a little brother. I'll say that about my own. And
So we got one other question. Dennis down in Olympia asked kind of your take on playing at Starfire versus playing at Cheney. Obviously, the grass is pretty wonderful from what we've heard. But any other opinions on that?
Well, Starfire was tremendously convenient for lots of reasons. It's still where we train. A familiarity that it's easier for everybody that lives in a 30-mile radius of Starfire to get there than it is to get down to Tacoma. That opening night on a Friday night at rush hour, I live in Federal Way, so you just take the back way down 509. It's no problem. But I really felt bad for people who had to make the trek.
I came from Snoqualmie.
Well, lucky you.
Well, no, that was basically 18 into the mess of Tacoma. But
There you
still,
go.
like
lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Cheney, as far as the grass goes, is phenomenal. Like capital PH, phenomenal. Right?
Phenomena.
Really.
Na-na-na-na.
Yeah. It is really, really, really good. And the transition areas between where they lay the grass in, it's slight, the rise, just very, very slight. But the grass is lush there. I've been so impressed with the job the grounds crew has done to convert that into a soccer stadium. And when it's full or when it's packed, that's the biggest difference. Well, the two differences: great grass and just simply the environment. You're playing in a place where it's noisy. There was a supporters group that would come to Starfire pretty faithfully, but we didn't get a lot else, right? It wasn't often packed, and that first game felt different, where there was you sensed a nervousness in the players that's important for them to feel.
Yeah,
because you don't want them to feel that for the first time when they're walking out at CenturyLink. You want them to feel that I don't want to disappoint this, right? And Casey, the events guy down at Cheney.
he's been on the show.
Oh my!
We love
a couple
Casey.
times.
Yeah,
He's fantastic.
Unbelievable. That first night, the the fireworks set off the car alarms in the parking lot. The stuff's falling on our heads. And the saxophone playing Gorilla. Are you kidding me? On the roof.
Yeah,
I didn't see that. We were in the locker room, but that's all
fantastic.
my wife could talk about.
Yeah, he's got a lot of things up his sleeve for later on. Too. Did you ever go to a Stars game? Because he did the same thing for Stars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they're the reinvigorated
Yes.
Stars.
Right.
Darren
Can't-
Sawatsky's Stars.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2. Yeah.
The Rainiers for their first 2 seasons.
I have to say
for
though,
their marketing partner.
the fireworks.
There's a train.
There's a train. So I am fortunate enough to not have to travel too far to get to the stadium. I live about 5 minutes away. But I can hear the fireworks every Friday night home game. After the game, whether win or lose, whether Rainiers, they push them, they shoot them off. And the first home game was actually, I think it was opening weekend for them. It was just like it was pouring down rain, just like it's been for S2, but they still did them. But because it was raining, they were like at a 2-hour delay. So it was like 11:30, 11:45 at night. And I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden, this explosion's going off. And I didn't realize it was opening night. And it was pouring down rain. I'm like, oh, shit. We being attacked? And then I realized, oh, Casey.
Wait, I'm going to throw out some red meat here, but what do you think of the smoke that
Oh, okay.
after the
Please define what you mean by red meat. I'm not a vegetarian.
to
so-
our listeners? When you
Okay.
see a goal scored by your guys, your
Yes.
kids,
Yes.
and that green smoke gets popped in the in GA down at Cheney.
I love it. No, I love it. It has the Italian kind of terrace feel. No, I don't know how well they can see for a minute or two after the smoke is set off. Yeah, but no, as far as atmosphere goes, it definitely adds a level. And that's not the only stadium that has smoke. Sacramento's got it. So it's a USL perhaps thing. I did see it in Kansas City as well. How do they get away with it at Sporting?
Sporting Portland, it isn't a league policy.
It's just CenturyLink?
What has to be,
it's the
you have to
fire
arrange
marshal.
it with the stadium has to be okay with
fire
it,
marshal bill.
and then
Got
the
it.
fire marshal /
Yeah.
police. Like,
To
you basically
say
have
that
to
I
have the
have
support of the team, the
Yeah.
stadium, and the authorities of that civic
And
community.
the Pope? Or something, yeah.
Yeah, so it takes
Basically-
a lot of work.
Okay.
The amount of time that I have spent as co-president of VCS working on smoke is
It's-
high.
It's great. No, it's great. It adds, again, that opening night was so much fun, and we hope that those nights continue throughout the
Yeah.
summer when the weather gets good, and instead of a Wednesday night game in the rain, it's a Saturday night game in the sun.
May 6th, May 12th.
Sorry. Yeah, that's not shameless either. We very much appreciate.
they
And it's
paid
by the way,
me.
May 12th, Portland. We're playing the Timbers again.
Oh, yeah.
May 12th. So T2 is coming back up I-5.
So-
again.
Oh, and they dip a bunch of first-teamers down, too. Like, did
Barmby,
you see that?
Abobase, yeah.
Over the weekend, they
Yeah.
dipped 8 guys
Yeah,
into
well,
their 18
we
from
are,
the first
and,
team.
And this is I'm not saying this to justify the fact that we're 2-4-1, but we are the only team that is like fully committed to the vision of developing young players. The Timbers, Monarchs, LA Galaxy 2, the Vancouver Whitecaps just basically did away with their franchise and farmed it out to Fresno. Didn't farm it out. They have one player that gets token minutes at the end of games. So we're the only club that
He
does
actually
that.
started and looked fairly
Yeah, I
good
thought he was
against
good.
you.
I thought he was good. The wing.
But they don't give any of the other kids time.
No, but those other clubs have gone with mid-20s USL veterans. I mean, Josh Phillips, for crying out loud, is starting for Portland, and he's a mid-20s guy that played for Colorado Springs. The Timbers are never going to sign that
Former
guy.
Zag.
Yeah, but the Timbers will never sign him. No chance. We only have guys that we think at some point might be able to earn a first-team contract. But that's the only players we will play, except we know David Estrada doesn't fit the mold. We have him for different reasons, but he's the only one we have, and we don't have him to help us win games. Although that we don't mind.
Seems
if he
to have
helps
been
us
okay.
Three,
Yeah.
He's
three
helped him
goals.
out with that.
Yeah, three goals have helped. Yeah, exactly. We bring him in because we think he is a great example of what a pro is, and we want our young guys to see that, and not some disgruntled mid-20s guy that doesn't really want to be there.
He's one of 2 players that's played in every game for you right now.
He and Dylan Tevez,
An unsigned academy
unsigned
kid,
17-year-old
who's young
academy
enough
kid.
that you didn't coach him. Well, I mean,
I
you
coached
were,
him this year.
but when you were the academy, the U18, U19.
Yeah,
coach,
well,
he was so young that you would help out, but he wasn't necessarily on your team,
that
right?
that was the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, we would pull him up for some games because he was good enough, and then but this year, no, I coached him from August until I joined S2, February 1st or whenever that was.
So he's playing well up.
He is playing up. He's playing up, and he has an offer from a local university.
UW, I believe.
Correct.
You don't need to confirm that, but the guys at Top Door Soccer have told me
I've
that
already confirmed that. He's got an offer from them. We would like him to consider doing what Sam Rogers did. We're in communication with the University of Washington and all that. It's his choice. But we think he has a big future as well. 17.
general input, go Dogs. I was a Husky, so
Okay, I was a pilot.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, there you go.
not everything about you is awesome.
So friendly Saturday.
There you go. University of Washington, we're at noon. We're playing at UW, S2. It's an off weekend for us. So we're going to rotate. We're going to get some players who are kind of needing minutes and also maybe some players who are not even signed yet that are going to be in town. And so it should be fun.
And facing the Huskies is you guys also had a Seattle U game already. Both of those
Canceled
teams,
due to the lights going out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It barely.
Yeah.
But if you are dedicated to the future of the Seattle Sounders, and you only have time to pay attention to 2 college programs, those are the 2 college programs you should pay attention to.
Oh, yeah.
Because so many of the kids, I mean, they're both great schools academically, but so many of the kids go into that, and Jamie Clark and Pete Fewing both are producing professionals at a clip that basically rivals the Southern California schools and the East Coast schools with those histories. They're not at an Akron clip yet, but they're producing significant talents.
Yeah, and as long as the first team continue to be prepared to tap into that, our academy guys, the Handwalla, Henry Wingo, 2 recent signees anyway that came. Christian was an academy, but another UW guy. It's just so easy to scout locally, but you can scout locally if the program's crummy, it doesn't help, right?
But then you also get an Alex Roldan
From Seattle U, well,
David Olson.
Dave's Seattle U. They also go back a little further. Cam Weaver, who wound up, I think he finished his career here in Seattle.
He did. He's
Yeah.
now remodeling homes.
Well, that's probably more lucrative than some jobs I know. So.
Kyle Bjorntham, who came through the academy,
Correct.
Seattle U, is a
Yep.
pro player. TFC 2, I think, right now.
Yep.
Got drafted, but the academy and those 2 schools are producing pro kids. So
It's an exciting time to be in Seattle. When I was young, everyone said St. Louis was the soccer capital of America. This is the 70s, of course.
they had that title for like the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Like,
Yeah, I don't remember the 50s so well, but yes, the 70s. But I don't know how anyone, just the Northwest as a region, but Seattle in particular, given the passion of the fans, but also the quality of the academy programs, of the local university programs, of the pro team, the big pro team. It's hard to argue with success. What was that? I don't often quote Don Henley from the Eagles, but there is that wonderful line where in a Victim of Love, where he says, I could be wrong, but I'm not. So, yeah. Seattle.
I might use that soon. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm not.
That's a good
basically the
conversation
essence
ender.
of my Twitter.
Right. Use that on Twitter. Yeah, with people. By the way, breaking news just in.
Oh.
11 minutes ago. Steve Zakawani tweeted, "You don't know betrayal until someone you're watching a Netflix show with decides to watch an episode without you. 4 seasons in. Heartbreaking stuff." So Steve has been Netflix cheated on, and
It's weird because he's
I don't
using
know how
Twitter,
he's
so it's
even
not his
handling it.
wife. Basically, Steve has told us the general guide to whether or not his wife is traveling or not is how active he's on social media.
Oh, okay. If his wife's traveling, then he's not on social media.
No, if
Oh,
his-
is.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
So it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to make it through the rest
Probably
of the night.
Darlington.
It actually probably
Those
is
two are
Darlington.
or Caleb.
Wow. Do you think they all have separate accounts on
No.
their shared Netflix?
I bet that Akron class
One
share
Nef- one
like, one
Netflix.
Netflix account. Like, whether it's Ben Zemansky or Caleb Border or Steve Zakawani.
Wow. Do you think Yedlin can afford his own Netflix right now?
Pretty certain.
Yeah. I mean, he's back to the hair thing, which I'm super pleased about.
I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
How
I
good
missed
was that post about his dog?
Oh,
How good
the
is-
Simba post?
Yeah, the Simba post.
It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think we have a couple other things we want to talk about, but we'd like to do something called SonarFeed questions, where we sort of do some rapid fire stuff.
This is exciting.
We're not there just yet,
Okay.
but I did want to talk about Miami.
Yes.
We had a conversation months ago that was a lot of Carlos Valderrama related, but you played with a number of characters in Miami. Pablo,
Yes.
Carlos, a few others. Do you have any fun anecdotes or stories or good times in Miami that you could share?
I've got a couple. Valderrama is an interesting character for lots of reasons. He's obviously iconic with the hair, and South American Player of the Year 3 times, I think. Captain of Colombia. Just a really charismatic figure. And when he was, we'll call him moody. When he was in a good mood, he was the best teammate I ever had. His English was very poor, but my Spanish was less poor than his English, so we would converse in Spanish. And funny, and knew his kids, all that. When he was not in such a good mood, he could be difficult. And there was one time in a game where I won a tackle and I popped up with the ball, and he was flashing out to a wing and sort of giving his pose like, give me the ball. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw we had another Colombian striker named Diego Serna, very fast and powerful. And he was making a little curled run, and I thought, I can clip that in there. And I kind of inside out at the ball, and it just faded on me, and it went out for a throw, and I'm like, oh, crap. And Valderrama's standing with his hands on his hips looking at me. Right? And I raised my hand.
And we can all see that, too, which is amazing.
The universal language of apology. I raised my hand, my bad, or whatever I said, that's on me. And I reorganize. They take the throw, and it goes to the other side of the field. I shuffled across the other side. It goes out for another throw, and I look over my shoulder to check my right back's positioning. And Valderrama's in the same spot with his hands still on his hips, still staring at me.
He hadn't moved.
It's been 40 seconds, and he's not moved a muscle. And at that point, what do? I say, I put both hands up, like, come on, man, we've got to work. And he, I don't know that he ever actually forgave me. Pablo Mastroeni is still a friend. My wife and I used to have the young guys over. He was 20 or 21 when he was drafted out of North Carolina, and he's living on South Beach. And I'm married with 2 kids, and I'd come home and I'm making dinner and wearing the apron and chopping the carrots and all that, and he's wearing a thong out on the beach. It's so a little different lifestyles. But we would
Please
bring
don't Google that.
Yeah,
I was Googling something else. That is a photo.
we would bring the young guys over and have dinner, and Erin, my wife, was sort of a surrogate mom for them. And I remember I gave them all books. It was 3 in his class, a goalkeeper named Matt Napoleon, who I don't remember what book I gave him, Leo Cullen from Minnesota, and Leo actually is now the agent for the Cameroonians that come and play for us too, so I've reconnected with him. But Leo, I gave him Lake Wobegon Days, the Garrison Keillor book, because
Nice.
Minnesota, my dad's from Minnesota. And I gave Pablo Siddhartha, the Herman Hesse book, right? Thinking he seemed real zen to me. I was wrong. He didn't really like to read so much, and he later admitted that, I never read that book. But the other Valderrama story is our coach was fired midway through the season, Cacho Cordoba, an Argentine, who Valderrama quite liked. And they brought in a Brazilian, Ivo Wortman, and Valderrama didn't like him. So the very first training session, there's a lot of media there. especially from the Spanish press down in South Florida. And Valderrama and he have a very public spat, very public. And he storms off. Valderrama leaves training and gives the finger to the camera. So the front page of the Spanish Daily down there is this big middle finger from Valderrama as he's storming out of practice. So the coach suspends him, and I'm appointed captain. So we win our first game, and I have a big cut over the eye. They bandage me up. I'm bleeding. It's very dramatic. It's at New England as well, so the Minutemen with the bloody headband, it's appropriate. And then we win the next game at home to Columbus, and Valderrama's still suspended. But now he's back in the good graces. He wants to come back and play, and we lose the third game. And I know that they were waiting for I know this. They're waiting for a nice way to take the armband off me and give it back to Valderrama, because I'm not going to be captain when he's playing. But they're so concerned with how I will take this, right? With how I will take this, that they bring me into the office, and they're so nice, and they say, you've done such a good job, and we feel really, really bad. Valderrama's coming back, and we think maybe if it's okay with you, we wouldn't mind if we maybe made him maybe the captain. And in my mind, this is going to sound terrible, I'm thinking like Pablo Escobar. I'm thinking people in Colombia kill for things smaller than that, right? So here I am. I'm not going to. I'll give him the armband. I'll give it to him on a pillow. I don't want there to be any trouble. No trouble with Carlos, please. He got the armband back, and we actually, people always say Seattle, second expansion team to make the playoffs. Chicago was the first. Seattle's the second. Now Atlanta's done it. Well, people forget that Miami also made the playoffs the year that Chicago won the whole thing. So we were both expansion teams in the same year. We both made the playoffs. Of course, there were only 6 teams in each division, and 4 of them made the playoffs. It was a little bit easier when 66% of your division got to make the playoffs. But there's a little trivia for you as well.
Did Valderrama is interesting because from that era, probably many of our listeners his most similar player might be Cuauhtémoc Blanco, in that neither of them really needed to run.
Well, they didn't run. But you're right. They were.
They could thread a pass and put English on it in a way,
or Spanish, or French.
Yeah,
any language,
anything.
Yeah,
but they could force the ball to move in ways that shouldn't be possible.
Valderrama. So you know the classic rondo or 5v2 where you get a circle of guys with a couple in the middle. Valderrama never went in the middle. There was one touch, and he wasn't cheating. You could not. There wasn't a ball you could give him that he couldn't one touch to somebody else and be immediately ready for the return pass. I've never seen any player as good as him in that. I realize, a guy like Messi, I imagine, is not bad. But Valderrama's whole thing it had nothing to do with speed. It was all about technique and touch. And, you give him a ball and there'd be people on him, and it wouldn't matter. He would not lose it. Of course, if somebody else lost it, he wouldn't chase back to help. So as far as a teammate went, there were positives and negatives. Let's just say that.
You were a defensive player, though.
Yeah, I had to cover for him a lot, and I did. But I don't mind.
Remember every one of those.
Yeah, every grievance. I've got a long list of grievances in a little black book.
You've got a handful of goals in your MLS history. Do you remember each of them?
Yeah, they're not that many, Dave. I do appreciate you saying that. Jordi Delem, I'm very proud, got his first goal, but he's still going to have to go to catch me in the. He needs one more. Yeah. He needs one more.
Did you ever score in that run up?
Oh, the
shootout thing?
No, I did not.
You were not on the list.
I was typically not in the 5 chosen.
Because how fun was that? Did you practice that?
Yeah, we did. 35 yards out, 5 seconds to score, keeper advancing, you got to dribble in.
Was that like the best idea from that era, basically?
That actually is a holdover from the NASL. That's
one of those things that, honestly, it's a lot more fun to watch that than normal penalty.
You guys probably know this, but the NASL had that 35-yard line for a shootout, but that 35-yard line on each half of the field also was the offside line in each half of the field. So midfield was not offsides. It was 35 yards from the goal, so it got really stretched. Games were really open.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just press up to midfield and pull them off. You could only press 35 yards from your own goal. So
it's so funny. Those videos show up. It would be. Those videos show up every once in a while. Like, during some sort of delay, or like various MLS broadcasts will run it on the streaming, and you just watch it and it's like the announcers are just beside themselves about the whole thing. And I can't decide if it's because they find it horrible or it's just so random that they're excited.
Well, I find that watching old games, old being 70s or earlier, it's like you're watching a different sport. The amount they ran, significantly less. Certain players didn't defend. That's you didn't do it. But you also understand that the sporting evolution happens. In the beginning, in the 1870s, practicing was seen as cheating. That if you have to practice to beat me, well, that's shame on you. Where's the sportsmanship in that? It's if you can't beat me with your natural fists and all that. So the idea that you could be a professional and you'd be paid to practice and play, it's a foreign idea for those early folks and those that obviously the professional side won the fight. But so if you look at the evolution of the game just in the last 40 years in America, that shootout was a curious insertion, but it was only done because we refused to accept ties. The tie is it's a foreign thing.
Welcome to
Of course,
America.
there is American exceptionalism, right? That is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that we just assume that we don't have to do the sport the way the rest of the world does it. I talked to Jeff Stock once. I've talked to him several times, but he's the old Tacoma Star, Seattle Sounder, Tacoma, went to Stadium High School, and he's from the original era, and he was convinced indoor soccer was going to be the game that made it, right? Because he saw that Stars thing, and he thought, well, Americans don't like the pace of the game the rest of the world plays. They love fast-paced. You got to score a lot of goals, lasers, smoke machines, all that. And I'm happy that the current game. I hope Darren's Tacoma Stars do great, but I'm happy the current game is as healthy as it is right now.
Mm-hmm. So we have a couple of questions from online. Lisa got your question. Max, you had a question about Cheney.
Yeah. So I grew up playing baseball, and whenever we got to play on a professional field of any sort, or even a good college field, the grounds crews were very, very protective, especially of the infield and that spot behind home plate. Do they have, I'm not going to say restrictions, but that must kill them to see that infield get run on like that. Do they have any special recommendations for you guys about where you are and aren't at certain times?
Not during the game. That will harder to control. But our warm-up, they have talked to us because the way they have the field set up is we warm up in center field right at the warning track, kind of across the warning track line a little bit towards right field.
From center to right field is outside of the field of play, and they warm up there.
But Nick, not the grounds crew guy, but the sort of the director of operations, before our first game, just said, guys, if you could see to it to maybe not warm up in the same spot, I could just rotate your warm up into a little different areas so you wear the grass more evenly. But what I was impressed with was we had very rainy nights on a Wednesday and a Saturday at home, and the ground. The grass is phenomenal. It absorbs water well. But they also had the tarp out. I don't know if people knew that. They had the big baseball tarp out covering the infield, even though there's no dirt on the infield because they inserted the grass bits. And it kept that part wonderful. Really, really good.
There was even under the grass.
Right at the edge of the tarp.
Yeah.
Right.
And even under the grass that's covering the dirt is a tarp. So they put tarp down and then grass so that dirt doesn't get too muddy from.
It was interesting watching Usman and Nick adjust to that one puddle.
The puddle.
Because at first they were trying to just dribble through it, and after a few times they're like, let's go up and over.
Yeah.
Let's go around that. Like, they changed their pattern, and for me, observing that, I was like, oh, they get it. And like, for me, I saw that as a positive, because whether it's a player or the conditions, if it's not working, don't just bang your head in the wall. Adjust. And they made that adjustment probably about 12, 14 minutes into the game. And they either went, and the opposing team did not make that adjustment. They tried to dribble through it several times and low passes through it, and Seattle, the
Yeah.
S2 just ate it up.
Well, independent thinking is critical. With the only time we get to talk to them once they take the field is halftime, and even then it takes us a minute or two to walk in. We got to be back out for the whistle 15 minutes after the halftime begins, and so they're shouting into the locker room. You got 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and you don't really communicate too much. You talk to the whole group about a couple of things, and that's it. So they have to solve the problems by themselves. As a player, I never thought a coach won a game for us. No matter how detailed his tactical plan was, it's always the players that have to implement it. Mm-hmm. Coaches are important in setting culture and tone and selecting the right lineup and using the right tactics. But if the players can't execute what it is you're doing, and oftentimes a tactical plan is it's more of a guideline, right? Because you don't know what the other team's exactly going to do, and then in the game things have to adjust, and you're shouting from the sideline trying to get people's attention, and you want this guy to sit deeper, but in the flow of a game it can be really difficult to execute those changes. So the more experienced players are, I don't think Pep has to say much at Manchester City, right? He just sort of stands up and does like that, and then everything adjusts because he's got super experienced internationals playing for him. And intelligence kind of comes with that territory.
Want to do fun questions?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
do we want to ask our other
Start with that one.
online question? So we had a rumor that you might have a literary tattoo.
Oh, wow.
I do. In fact, I'm a Lord of the Rings advocate. I have read Lord of the Rings every year. It's on my bedside table. I speak of it as a book because that's how Tolkien saw it, right? So I have J.R.R. Tolkien's initials tattooed up here in Dunedain, which is Elvish for Man of the West. Underneath it, Aragorn being the character that I would most like to be. Mm-hmm. However, I'm confident he is probably the character I'm least like.
Who is the character you're most like?
I've thought about that, and I'm realizing that recently I'm thinking it's King Theoden that thinks he's older than he is. I'm talking about under the spell of Saruman and Wormtongue and all that. Like when I feel withered and old often, but I'm sure that it's just a spell that's being woven that I have to break free from. So no, actually, it's probably Frodo. There's so many things I love about it. In my book, I annotated. I've got I've written in it for years. But since I was a teen, I've read it every year. It's one of the things I do is, as I'm reading other things, it's always on my bedside table, and I'll read a few pages. So Frodo fails. That's what I love about the book. He is no hero. He's consumed by the ring, and at the very moment when all he's got to do is chuck the thing in to the flames, he fails. He puts it on his finger, and it's Gollum biting his darn finger off. That's what saves the world, right? I think that's a wonderful thing, that we're all frail and prone to failure, and we need help. All of us need a little Gollum to bite our finger off every once in a while to help us walk straight, right?
This is like the most motivational thing we've had in a minute on the show. Awesome. This is wonderful. And it was a book question. Thanks, Lisa. So SonarFeed questions, rapid fire. Have some fun with it.
We know one of these already.
You can pass,
okay,
but we're going to come back to it.
Okay.
All right. So we'll just get this one. This is the contentious one.
Contentious.
Favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Samoa.
Yes.
All right. I know my wife would disagree. I think she likes the tag-alongs. So
yeah. Dave's happy over there.
Ugo isn't here today, but we need to know, what is your favorite taco?
Oh, well, and this is probably not cheating, but it's I love the chicken soft taco at Del Taco, but it's kind of like fast food taco, and I know there's better tacos than that, but there's something in the sauce. The first time I had it, I was eating it in the car as I'm driving, and I turned around to go get more.
You're like,
which doesn't doesn't happen often.
Food that does that to you?
You remember.
Like you will never forget that.
It doesn't matter about quality.
It's like songs that you're listening to that you must pull over to properly appreciate.
Okay,
right?
As a Washington native, what's your favorite Taco Time menu item?
Yeah.
This is a bad thing.
Because we know that's not like authentic.
No.
Food,
This is bad. I've only eaten Taco Time a few times because it's more expensive. and as like a teenager, when I was really in my heavy taco consuming time, it was all about finance. You know, I had to
Taco Bell.
The Taco Bell was so cheap.
59, 69, 79.
Oh man, it's terrible. But I'm sure it's not good for me.
That's all good.
What should I be ordering at taco time?
Crispy
burrito.
Yep.
All right.
It's
Hey, we agreed on
completely
something.
inauthentic, and
It's the first time for
people who grew up here.
And delicious. All right, crispy burrito.
Mark, you got a question?
Did I?
You don't need to look at the list.
I want to ask the one at the very end of the list.
Just ask it.
Ask it now.
Have you ever had your home or office raided?
Oh,
Rated
that's a new one.
This is the newest
Specifically by
SonarFeed
the
question.
FBI.
by the FBI?
Face with that one more time.
No.
We do have an attorney here. If you need to consult with him.
Yeah, I'll do this and lean and all that. Yeah. No, we did. Sadly, we were burglarized. I don't want to say that's a Federal Way thing, but it was an awful experience. Awful experience. As
Been there,
as
done
you
that.
could.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, you haven't done that. No.
Mark is. If there were someone at
At
this
one
table-
point, the SonarFeed equipment had to be replaced because it was at Mark's house.
Oh,
No, that was my car.
Oh, car. Sorry, wrong
like to
burglary.
say. It's cool.
no home rating for me though.
What was the last book you read?
Tom Petty's biography by what's his name, Zanes. Really, I recommend it because I'm going to reveal. Music is the one abiding passion in my life beyond soccer and Lord of the Rings. But
It's the one passion.
Yeah,
Second
one
three,
except for the others.
Fourth passion.
But it's the one thing that my earliest memories are musical memories. But Tom Petty, I owned his greatest hits CD at some point. But I grew up with vinyl, and I had thousands of records, and I wound up converting them all to digital. But I never owned, I never appreciated Petty, and I didn't know, for example, he started using heroin at 45. It's unusual to begin the heroin addiction at 45. I have discovered in my life.
That's normally
right?
the young 20s musician.
I think
right?
so. He's had a fascinating, difficult. He had a fascinating, difficult life, and he was just pulling it all together. And so I have a newfound respect for him and leading a band rather than being a solo artist. He always saw himself as the guy that led the band rather than the solo artist who had a backing band. So I just finished it. In fact, yesterday. There you go. And now I'm reading
Literally, last book you read.
Pep's the history of his first year at Bayern. Just
Okay.
the story of his first year at Bayern. In addition to Lord of the Rings.
So now I have a follow-up question that's not officially on the list. Who is I can't hear myself because I've got my headphones on. What's your favorite band?
Well, that's a genre thing, okay, so right now I'm enamored with Queens of the Stone Age. Now they're not a young band by any means. Joshua Michael Homme, the singer, I'm fascinated with. I'm very disappointed in some of his political views and his decision to kick cameras into the faces of photographers. And I don't know if you saw all that. I don't like him necessarily as a human, but as a musician, I think he's phenomenal. I'm very much looking forward to Arctic Monkeys' new album, which is coming out next month. I'm going to see Not a Surf May 9th, if any of you are going to be watching their 15th anniversary of the Let Go album.
That's super fun.
But my earliest ones, I was in the Kiss Army in 1975.
That's not surprising.
First album I bought was Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits. I think that was 74. And then, but the ones that changed my life really were The Clash and the Sex Pistols. I didn't realize you could swear on record. My brother and I actually hid Nevermind the Bollocks in the closet because we thought it was X-rated or something because he uses the F word, Johnny Rotten.
You can swear on this show.
Well, but the Clash were for me all throughout my college years. There was a political mix and all that. So a lot of stuff.
Ozzy fan?
Osbourne?
Yeah.
I prefer Early Sabbath to Ozzy solo, but yes.
yeah.
But I do.
Back when he could enunciate.
I have an Ozzy story for later, but
You've got an Ozzy story, all right.
But
I've got
don't
it.
wanna
So
waste the
I went
show
through a
on-
Metallica phase, of course. I saw them with Cliff, the original bassist. Right, that's how old I am. But I got to how do I? Yeah, so I met Randy Johnson, the big unit, the pitcher for the Mariners, at a Metallica show because my brother. Long story. My brother sold a Bullwinkle lunch pail to an artist named Pusshead, who does the T-shirt art for Metallica. And when Metallica came to town, Pushead came with him and said to my brother, "Would you like to come see the show?" My brother didn't like Metallica, but he knew I did. So we got 2 tickets to the Snake Pit, which is the space underneath the stage. So the stage came up to my chest, and I'm looking out. I see their, like, James Hetfield's feet. The band is like right here. But what I didn't know, and Randy Johnson came in and stood for about 2 songs and gave me the death eye when I said, "Hey, big unit, what's up?" And he's there with his girlfriend or wife or something, so he left. But I don't think he left because of me, but I realized the speakers were 10 feet behind me. These enormous, like 30-foot Marshall stacks. I don't have any earplugs or anything, and I hear the hum as they turn them on, and this is a problem. And everyone's wearing earplugs, everyone. So I reach in my pockets and my wallet. I'm trying to find something to stuff in my ears. All I had was an ATM receipt. So I ripped it in half, put it in my mouth to get it a little moist, stuck it in my ear, and it didn't work at all.
And you got paper in your ear.
And I couldn't get it out then for a while. It's terrible. It dried. It was terrible.
That's awesome. Do you have a question, Dave?
I'm going to save the big one for a little bit later.
It's making me nervous, the big question.
Tupac or Biggie?
Oh, Tupac.
West Coast?
That's the best coast. What are you talking about?
For some people, it's just so simple.
What would your last meal be if you were on death row?
It would have to be my wife's stroganoff, a beef stroganoff. She does a really exceptional one. My mother made a good one, but my wife sort of took it to another level. Let's just say. I'm just hoping she wouldn't have to make it for me while I'm on death row, because that would be. I'm hoping that would be depressing to her.
What would your last meal be when you sign with Death Row Records?
Chateaubriand. Yeah.
Well done. What was the last gift you gave someone?
Well, that would probably be around the holidays, I'm thinking. Can I tell you the best gift?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So every year since my wife was 18, and I was also 18, but I have made her a mix of music, the classic mixtape, right? So in the 80s, that very much was a tape, 90 minutes, 45 on each side, and the song order is always so important and all that. Well, I have every year since then made her a mix of music on her birthday. Of course, it long ago went digital, but I then went back for Christmas one year and converted all of those old tapes. Some of the songs I didn't have anymore, and I didn't have a digital convert. Like I couldn't convert analog to digital, so I had to go find the digital version of these songs that are long. Like, do you remember the Bourgeois Tag song called "I Don't Mind at All"? Anyone?
Adam's
No.
our best chance at that.
All right, so it's
That's our outro tonight.
it's there were a few songs. In fact, there T-Rex, of course, famous for "Bang a Gong" and
Get It On.
Get it, yeah, in parentheses. I Don't Mind at All, Bourgeois Tag. But there's also T-Rex used to be Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it was Mark Bolan on acoustic guitar and a guy named Steve Peregrine Took. Steve Peregrine Took on bongos. So it was acoustic guitar and bongos, and their first 3 records were just that. And I had a couple of tunes from that on these early tapes. So I converted them all and put them on CDs, and I got a label printer, and I put a picture of my wife on each disc of her at that age. So
Can we not share this with my wife? Because I'm not going to meet that
It is
bar.
the greatest gift I've ever given, and I still make these tapes, these mixes. So. Yeah, so it's all in iTunes. We've got all of them in there. She can listen to it for days. Her birthday mix. Some of which I lose the plot some years. Like I had to put "Smells Like Teen Spirit." So it's like the songs that are big at that time, but also something that means a song that I hear that means something.
So from last year, did you put Despacito on it?
No, but it's on the list for. Yeah.
How many Cardi B? How many Cardi B songs?
No. No, it's I can never repeat a song, so that's another thing. So
Okay.
it's a challenge.
Holy
it's a
Wow,
challenge.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I've got a follow-up question. With the transition from analog to digital and now to subscription-based,
Yes.
can you add anything even if you don't actually own it?
Well, here's
Or
the
are you
deal.
making like a Spotify playlist?
Yeah, here's the deal. I'm going to reveal. I have Spotify, but I still have to buy it.
Yep.
So
Physical.
yeah, you have to physically own it.
Yep.
Do you have a record player?
I do, but I don't. It's not connected to anything.
Why not?
Just dust. Yeah. No. I sold my records. I converted them to digital and sold them. I know it's a.
Adam, we needed to introduce you before.
Yeah, no
that
kidding.
sale.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I kept a few. I kept 50 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I still have a good chunk of the Pistols and Clash, and I was a Paul Weller collector for a long time.
Have you put them on Discogs? You should go check on
and
Discogs.
check their value.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't do it. You'll just
Yeah.
hate yourself.
I had a jam in the city U.S. promo with the media stuff and a couple glossies and
Yep.
I don't know that didn't survive my sale.
Actually, it's good to put them even if you're not going to sell them, because if there's ever, God forbid, a fire near your record player, then that's a good
Insurance.
Yeah, insurance, exactly.
There you go.
I have all 500 of mine on Discogs. That took me a long day to do.
So like digitally converting it into it? Is
No,
that
no.
what you're saying?
All
Or
it is, you
have to
just use the
type it in?
Discogs. You use their app, and it will scan the UPC code,
Okay.
and then it just
tell you what it
automatically,
is.
yeah. But then you get into things where it's like you have to read the runoff etching
Yes.
to figure out which version you have, because some are worth $10 and some are worth $300.
So the laser etching on vinyl, right?
Yeah.
So the Clash, one of the many reasons I loved them, but on London Calling, the original album, it's a double album.
Yep.
So on side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, it's Tear Down the Walls,
Yeah.
written in the runoff groove.
Nice.
There's an Adam and the Ants album that it says, "Have you found the lost Hawaiians?"
Yes.
Did you know about this? So normally when you had the turntable, it would have an automatic return when
Yeah.
you reach a certain point. Well, if you deactivated your automatic return, they had a repeat loop that played like luau music, and you hear waves coming in on the beach. But you
Just
wouldn't,
this-
you
yeah.
wouldn't hear it
If you
unless
had
you,
a-
deactivated
Yeah.
the thing. So
Fast. Yeah,
That's the hidden track.
Yeah.
the classic hidden
There's
track.
Actual hidden
Before a
track.
CD.
That's yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know
I think
about that.
I'm pretty sure Modest Mouse did something like that as well, and there's a few. Yeah, it's cool.
I don't often cite Adamant in many
That's
ways.
okay.
What
Be surprised how many times I do. No.
what historical figure would you want to go in a bouncy house with?
Carlos Valderrama.
So define historical, like the real, like or
I think we've gone off the rails on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
We,
right.
n-
Generally,
Wow.
it's a person who's lived.
A person who's lived. Okay. You know, I always I've loved Abraham Lincoln's life story, and so I would like to be in a bouncy house with Honest Abe.
I think that we're in a
He's
computer
literally the most
simulation.
common answer.
Most common
Is it
answer.
really?
And it's not close. Like 10-1.
Well, I'm fascinated by. I was a history major and taught history for a while in the middle years, and I find him fascinating. I think he knows how to have fun, and his life is so tragic because he was elected president and had no fun for the rest of his life. You know, is surrounded by misery, his children dying, his wife in a serious depression. That he could use a bouncy house.
Yeah.
For real, though.
Interesting, because if we do like the dinner with 4 famous people question that is like fairly routine and common.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln's not the most common answer on that, but for a bouncy house, he's the most common answer. Like, I think Ben
He's pretty
Franklin is
tall,
the one
too.
that we've had the most for the have dinner with guy. Mm-hmm. But Abe
I'm
Lincoln,
pretty sure Ben Franklin throws a rager. Let's just be clear.
I've heard stories.
Abe, on the other hand, might
Heard
pop your
stories.
bouncy house.
He might go
He's
through
got
the
some
roof.
sharp angles.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. He is angular. Yes.
Do you want to... Are you going to ask... Which...
Wheelhouse?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
All right. So, one of Wade and I's most common conversations and I prepped
I know
him
where this
for
is
this.
going. I know where it's going.
What is your favorite D&D character?
You
We
brought
have
a
a prop here,
too.
by the way.
Yeah, I did bring. So I have the original deities and demigods. This is before they took Cthulhu and Michael Moorcock's Melnibonéan myth out. So this is the original. It's worn a little. Of course, it was new when I bought it in 1983 or whenever that was. I would have to say that I've always been a fan of the Druid. And I've only ever, I was a DM most of the time when I played, but I've only ever had 2 people play Druids, and I find them wonderfully complicated. There's the earth part of them, the clerical healing part of them, and I also just love Spinal Tap. And I channeled Stonehenge and all that with the Druids. So
if you pay deep attention to the soccer and D&D thing, you know that Garth and Wade used to play D&D together.
Yes, Garth was in I was the DM in a campaign he was in, yes, for a good 10 months.
Yeah.
Who had the better hair at that point, you or Garth?
My hair was white at that, and orange at different times.
Okay.
But Garth, he had done away with the cornrows at that point. He did have the cornrows the year before in Kansas City.
There are some photos that must haunt him.
I think he's gotten over it.
We have brought that up a few times, actually.
Yeah. I'm not proud of my hair decisions, but it's like being embarrassed about being right-handed. There's not much I can do about it, right? It's sort of done. So I could become left-handed. It'd be a challenge.
You never know.
Right?
Do you have a... did you do modules, or did you...
I'd set up my own campaign, but in the Greyhawk system.
Okay.
So the modules that I used would be associated with, Tomb of Horrors, which is down there by the Lost Swamp on the right side map, the eastern map, and I have the maps still. I still have all my stuff. I don't play so much anymore, but you've invited me to games.
We are going to drag Wade to the Sounder Art D&D group at some point.
At some point.
It's hard to match up a schedule when most of the regular players write for Sounder at Heart or Ride of the Valkyries, and then Wade's part of S2, and it's almost impossible.
I think this is a spin-off episode where we bring the cameras.
Oh, God.
And then we're going to turn it into a sizzle reel.
And we stream
that.
the gameplay.
Streaming D&D, for some reason, is now incredibly popular.
It is a thing.
I know, yeah.
It's a thing.
Literally
Yeah.
everything
I've
is
seen
on
it.
Twitch.
Yep.
All the things. It's like there are streams of people watching other people play video games. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We got an internet question from Emily.
Okay, go.
Who asks what your favorite line from the High Fidelity movie is?
Or Fidelity.
Of course, you're talking about the High Fidelity Nick Hornby book.
Nick Hornby,
Cusack.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm an Arsenal guy, and Nick Hornby. I don't, the Jack Black version. There's an English High Fidelity movie as well, I think, right? Not just the American version.
I don't think that they made an. I don't think so.
I thought there was a British one. I thought I saw that.
I mean, we have the
don't
internet.
know.
We could probably look at it.
How does it work?
I can't quote any lines from that movie. I do love Nick Hornby. I loved that movie. My abiding memory is just it resonated with me because top 5 lists.
Yeah.
But they're never just 5. You could, you probably have 30 songs in your top 5 best songs with Shirley Bassey as a backing vocalist. But maybe not 30. Top 5 share tracks produced by Snuff Garrett, right? That sort of thing. I only know 3, but they were all #1 hits. Did you know? Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, Dark Lady, and Half Breed. Those are Snuff Garrett produced share #1 hits from the early 70s.
Pretty serious.
There you go.
We're getting
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
deep cuts are happening.
I can't quote lines out of High Fidelity, but I do love Nick Hornby as an author.
Emily said they made an American and a British fever pitch.
They did.
Yes,
Yes, they
the
did.
American fever pitch
was about baseball.
Yeah, it was baseball. It was the Red Sox,
Yeah.
and it got ruined because 2 years later, the Red Sox won it.
Actually won the title.
Or that year.
Was that year?
But,
Computer simulation.
Drew Barrymore and actual...
I know. Yeah, I can see him.
somebody look it up, but it's like a famous dude.
More fun just to guess.
Turned it a little bit. The book is not a love story, but the Americanized version of the movie is a love
Fever
story.
Pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Fever Pitch book explains so many men I know.
Yeah.
It does.
When they make the movie of Wade Webber's life, who plays Wade Webber?
I'd like my son to play me. My son, you haven't met him. Keegan Weber lives in Spokane. He's married. He'll be 27 in November.
No way.
I had him when I was 9.
Jimmy Fallon. Sorry.
Jimmy Fallon?
Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore, right? That's significant names to put behind that movie.
Yeah, no, I didn't see the baseball version. I didn't, but no, I think
If you've read the book, don't.
Well, no, I love the book, so I wouldn't. But I'd want my son probably because he's closest to me in most ways, biologically, but also I think it's a nature and nurture. He's a good mix. But if you're talking someone people know, I would love to have Viggo Mortensen play me. Again, a little bit of
Star from Lord of the Rings.
Aragorn thing.
Yeah. I noticed the trend.
The physical look is the guy. Oh,
I've been. Somebody told me I looked like Dale Earnhardt once with glasses. I don't follow NASCAR, so I couldn't tell you.
Not because of the movie subject, and somebody's going to get the movie in a bit. There's the dude where the guy snaps on the LA freeway. Who's that actor?
Michael Douglas? Falling Down?
Yeah. I could see Michael Douglas playing Wade Webber.
That's a good call.
That's thank you. I think that's
But
good.
not
I know who he is.
that Michael Douglas. Not Falling Down. He's not going to have an RPG on the freeway.
The best answer to this question is still when we asked Eddie Johnson.
We asked Eddie Johnson, and Steve Zakuani in the background says Wesley Snipes from Demolition Man.
And he was specific. That Wesley Snipes. That was a
Eddie was
wonderful answer.
not happy.
He was not.
No, who did he want? Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Will Smith, wasn't it?
Oh.
Wasn't
Oh,
that
was
who
Will
Eddie
Smith.
wa-
Yeah.
Will can
Eddie
do
wanted
anything.
Will. Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
What's a word or phrase that you overuse?
That's probably the phrase
That one right there?
Yeah.
The ponder.
Most people don't know this, but those that have known me a long time or know me well do. I stutter. I have dealt my entire life with a speech impediment, stuttering, and went to speech therapy all through elementary school, and it was traumatizing and terrible, and didn't help. It made it worse. So I have a lot of phrases that I use that are placeholders. I just used one right there. So when I pause for a second, it's because I've come up to a word I can't say, and so I insert something. So I don't know that there's an actual phrase that I overuse because it depends on the sentence I'm trying to say. So most people would think, well, he speaks perfectly well because I haven't heard him stammer at all. But that's because all throughout this long soliloquy, is that a word I can use? I've been coming up on words that I'm having to kind of tiptoe around, which is an unusual thing for someone who actually does speak on the radio to have a speech problem. So
talked for a few years now, and I've heard you on the radio for even longer than that. I have both a lisp and a stutter in my past. The stutter is basically gone. The lisp, like Jerome James, is one of the.
Okay.
I can't do
I love
J's,
it.
SH's, CH's very well.
Is that why the ist thing came up down there earlier? The Methodist?
No.
No, wasn't that?
But I would never have thought that of you.
Yeah. It's
you have
a lot of practice. And,
you have conquered that.
I have, unless I'm under stress. And then it comes out. And so there are times that you'll hear it on the radio. There have been times I completely freeze and the vocal cords seize up, and you think I'm trying to come up with the right word when the reality is I'm horrified that I will never be able to speak again. And I'm not I'm exaggerating a little bit about the horror, but
When I run into that, I just know that James Riley's going to talk, so I don't have to do it.
I've got Pete Fewing next to me, so it's usually pretty easy. Just coach. And
It's the advantage of
yeah.
the 3-person booth
There you
is
go.
like you don't have to be
It's
the
beautiful.
one. Yeah.
What advice would you give? Let's say 1996 you.
Ooh.
To review 1996, Wade Weber
96, so I was just
playing for
coming
the
off my
Sounders.
ACL, my first ACL. We won the championship that year. Invest in Microsoft.
That's good advice.
Nothing soccer related.
No.
Just
no,
invest in
no.
that tech company up the way.
It's always funny because I think we've asked people that question, and there's this look, and they're like, I'm not telling this story. And like there's a moment, and there have been people who've been like, think twice about those decisions, and they just leave it really vague for a second. That's a good one, though.
If you'd asked me like 86, it would have been learn the guitar.
Okay.
I learned it, but it took me a long time. I didn't come to the guitar until my mid-30s, and I strum, but I don't really play like someone who knows how to do it. If I'd started quite a bit earlier, it would have been easier.
Do you have any advice for kids today? Kids these days.
Yeah, the old man, get off my lawn sort of stuff. It would be, of course, put down the phone, and that would be the only advice I give.
Do you want to work in the ECS section?
Work in the I understand that's a thing, right? People are on
Putting
their
your
phones.
phone down? Yeah.
Yeah. See, I do have my phone
Not me, my
has
friends.
been vibrating in the pocket, but I am old enough to resist the siren call.
That might have been
is-
some phantom vibrating.
not.
That happens sometimes.
But it is being when I went to see Queens of the Stone Age January 25th at Key Arena. Was a wonderful show, but there were people that spent the entire time, and this is again probably going to reveal me as being an old guy, but you're there, and to be present in the moment, enjoying what you're experiencing. Other people are filming it.
Yeah.
If you want to go watch it again, it's going to
There
be
are
available
700
online.
streams.
Let the other person film.
That internet thing is great, but if it's so important for you I think to just be in that moment and look around and smell and just be tuned in. Again, the older I get, the more I appreciate the fact that I did not grow up with. I grew up. I mean, we still had the cord on the phone. I grew up with a dial phone. We had a black and white TV when I
Same.
started watching TV, right? So I'm of an era where there was no internet, no cable TV, no cell phone. You wouldn't want to be inside, so you went outside and you played, and that helped me athletically because there were older kids in the neighborhood I had to compete with, and I know all that was great, but I really do think that I love the phone and I love the convenience of all that stuff, but I just think if I were to give advice to young people, it would be to spend a certain amount of the day unplugged and doing something that you love other than playing. I don't even know what games kids these days are playing.
Mark, you do Pokemon still here.
I don't really play that many games.
You've talked about music a lot.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about it some
Karaoke
more.
at the Berliner
Yes.
Pub starts
I
when
love
we end.
karaoke.
Yes.
What is your go-to
Okay,
karaoke
it is
song?
Depeche Mode's Policy of Truth.
Wow.
There was no hesitation. Like,
Yeah. No, it is one that's in my wheelhouse. David Gahan and I apparently resonate at the same frequency. And I also just debuted a few weeks ago at my local karaoke bar, the Sandbar in Northeast Tacoma, Browns Point. The old Herb Alpert song, "This Guy Is in Love with You."
Wow.
Yeah.
by the way,
Burt Bacharach wrote it, but Herb
Only-
plays that little trumpet thing.
you're on like top 2 for rapid answer. Like,
Yeah.
I sing karaoke a lot.
Steve,
Yeah. In fact,
Steve was that quick, and you were that quick,
In fact,
and nobody else.
The Sandbar every Thursday night has a thing they call the Spotlight Entertainer, which is a little odd in that from 8 o'clock to 8:45 they give someone 45 minutes straight of karaoke, so it's almost like a concert.
Tom's going to the Sandbar this week.
So yeah,
one person for
one
45
person.
minutes.
Yeah. So
They pick their songs.
Do they pick their songs? Oh, it's not like Suicide.
They
You do.
pick them. It's their set list.
Yeah,
They give them to
okay.
the DJ. He, 2 weeks in advance, he's
You're
got
doing
them all
this.
queued up. No, I'm part of a trio called the Sand Barbarians,
Nice.
and we are performing May 25th fourth, I think. Our second. We did one back in August, and we're again. And I'm gonna for sure do the Herb Alpert tune, but I haven't decided what my other songs will be yet. Policy of Truth was in my last set, which is really odd because it's karaoke and no one's paying to watch it, and yet you say thank you between the songs. You know, thank you very much.
I'll be here all night.
This next one's dedicated to all the lovers.
So not in our list, but came in a little bit earlier. You're talking about like youth soccer in the area.
Yeah.
Are there any high schools in particular that people should pay attention to see where some of the talent's coming from?
Besides TJ?
Besides TJ? Are you kidding me? Thomas Jefferson High School, my alma mater, 8 state championships.
List some of the other players that we might know.
Well,
from TJ.
let me think. David Olson, who of course plays for S2. Darren Sawatsky, who you may know. He was Thomas Jefferson. I was his high school coach.
Friend of the show.
I was his high school coach back in 1990 and 91. I was 8 years old when I was coaching him. I went there. Lamar Nagel, some of you may have heard of course. Lamar is Thomas Jefferson. He won a state championship. I'm trying to think of others that have gone on that you might know of. But yeah, Thomas Jefferson have won more state championships than any school in the history of the state. Federal Way public schools have won more soccer state championships, boys and girls combined, than any district. I like to say, I think, I could be wrong, that per capita, Federal Way has produced more players that have played in MLS than any city in the United States.
Is Kellen from there, Rowe?
Kellen Rowe's Federal Way. Yeah. No, Kellen, you've got Leighton and Kieran O'Brien, who both have MLS.
Both have MLS experience?
Yeah, both have MLS experience.
Kieran settled down in Denver finally running an Irish bar.
Well, there's worse things you can run, like a marathon.
Or for president.
I would rather run an Irish bar than a marathon.
Guy with Irish history.
Yes.
Former soccer player.
I played with his dad.
Bar.
I played with Fran O'Brien, yeah. So Franner is just a saint of a man. And I just saw Leighton this morning.
Pac Northwest.
Director of coaching. And my wife's going to Ireland this summer, so conveniently we spoke about connecting with them to find some...
They know.
Some watering holes.
Yeah, Fedway's done fairly well for itself in soccer.
It has. It's the little city that could.
It's got 1 foot in the 253 and 1 foot in the 425 kind of.
Oh, it is 253. It is staunchly 253. Yeah. My phone is 253, and even when Federal Way at some point changes to a different area code, I will hang on to the 253.
Right, oh, I know.
Dave, are you questioning whether or not I know what the 253 is? Yeah. I am Federal Way born and raised.
I mean, I'm from that wacky city that demanded to be 425, so it didn't get the South sound. I grew up with 1 foot in Renton and 1 foot in Kent. So
there you go. Well, I know I'm
Kentridge has, you talk about TJ, but Kentridge has a little bit of a soccer history to it. There, Marcus Hanneman, Cam Weavers, Kent Wood, Travis Pizzega, who I think you might have played with. That 96 year, he had 4 appearances. You might have forgotten him.
No, my memory, steel jaw trap. Yeah, so maybe 97.
He might have been 97.
Okay, that's when I went to Dallas.
He played Kent Parks and Rec underneath my dad. I bump into him 20 years later. He's like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I joined the Army." He goes, "I played semi-pro soccer in Korea and Japan." I'm like, "Really?" Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, I had a couple call-ups with the Sounders when Neil Megson was the coach."
Yeah, Neil took over in that 96 season. I do have an odd, this is totally unrelated, I hope I have time for this. I taught, so I played a bit and then decided to get a proper job, got a master's at Seattle University. Mm-hmm. Taught for 1 year at Cedro Woolley High School. Cedro Woolley, the little town that I-5 missed. So, yeah. It was the only place I could get a job. I only had a history endorsement because I had a history degree, history and psychology, but I didn't take enough economics and geography classes to get a full social studies endorsement. So I taught one class. But the point of this is that year I kept in shape, and that's when the Sounders came back that next year. I kept in shape by playing co-ed rec soccer in the Mount Vernon Soccer League. My wife was on my team. It was terrible. The standard was, you can imagine, was not so good. There were a couple of Western Washington University guys that came down. But we played for Lou Ankney's Septic Services. That was my team.
What was your mascot?
Yeah, the toilet brush. Yeah, it was
poop emoji.
That was the team I played for
Today.
before I joined the Sounders. Was Lou Ankney's Septic Services.
It's one of the amazing things from that is to remember, like, that was American soccer, like that late 90s,
Yeah.
or early 90s, late 80s.
I had to get a real job, right?
Like, now we're talking 2 levels where you have fully professional. We have more professional American soccer players now than any other point in U.S. history.
Yeah, it is an exciting time, and if you're a talented young player, you can actually have a proper path. You could have a dream that is much more easy to fulfill. I know so many players that are of my era that were good enough to play, but for one reason or another, they just weren't. The opportunities didn't present themselves. You know, college teammates of mine that were really good and maybe played some semi-pro, but never really. They decided, I'll go get a job and live my life, and they're still very happy and all that. I was one of the ones that kind of got to do that other thing.
The pro division when you were in MLS, the top division was 8 to 12 teams during that era.
It was 10 when I joined.
10 when you joined.
Yeah, expanded to 12.
The A-League, the only other semi-pro, was 6 to 10 teams.
Yeah, it was 6 in '94. 6 teams. That was it.
Wow.
So if you could make it,
Yeah, in 94 to at 94 and 95, that was it. There was no other pro league.
yeah, and so I often think that, like, if there's 23 MLS teams right now, is there 23?
Yeah.
I think there's 23. So if every team plays a back 4, some play 3 at the back, but every team needs 2 central defenders at least. So that's 46 center back spots. Well, every team played 4 at the back in '94, but there were only 6 teams, so there were 12 spots. So it was much harder to get a job back then, and that. So again, fortune is on my side. I don't think I was ever the best player on my youth teams, but for whatever reason, the position I played and the way I played it or whatever, I made my way along. A lot of great players didn't have the fortune that I had. So
There's some interesting gaps in
Frodo
American
had
soccer.
to bite the finger off. Yeah. I don't know how that worked. Yeah.
How that works.
Most analogies don't bear close scrutiny, isn't that right?
But there's some certain eras, like that 95 to 96 is a break point in American soccer. The retraction that MLS is another break point, and then the rapid expansion starting with TFC.
They were the first properly supported team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching their games on CBC.
Yeah. A lot of why Seattle has succeeded as a business aspect has to do with what TFC did 2 years previously. I know Bart, early ECS leadership, visited Toronto frequently to figure out.
Well, I mean, that's what the league's doing year over year over year. Every time a new team comes in, the year prior or 2 years prior, depending on how much lag they have, they're getting them in town. Because I remember I used to live at All of 8, and that's where all the teams typically will stay. And the Orlando folks were in there, supporters were in town, and like, it's a pretty big deal, consistently. And they're like, okay, what can we learn from the previous couple times? Where do we go? That was actually pretty cool. I thought that, this is years in, and they are sending people to Seattle to talk to people and experience it. Yeah, that was pretty neat to see.
They send New England here too to figure out how it works.
Garth in 2009, 2010 was coming in from RSL just if he's wanting to know how it's happening. Like what are you feeding them?
Yeah.
To think now there are, I can't even keep track of the number of USL teams.
37, I think.
Yeah, and
33
with more joining.
There's 17 in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and more joining next year. Like when you played in the second division with 6 teams.
Well, there was no first division when I played.
Because there were 0 teams
nothing.
in the first division, and then there were 6 teams in the second division, and now it's 23 and 33.
Yeah, it's a good time to be an 18-year-old soccer player. Sam Rogers is in a really nice spot. He will be able to have a career.
Yeah,
because somebody's going to want him. right? And we want it to be the Sounders.
Yeah, we do.
And he wants it to be Manchester City, I'm sure. But
Well, he's got a couple steps in between here and Manchester
City. It's a bit of a jump,
I think.
probably, from at this point. But, more and more Americans playing overseas. It's just, we've become integrated. Whereas, we said earlier, the American exceptionalism thing, we used to be just so different, and we didn't care about FIFA, and we didn't qualify for a stinking World Cup. I know we didn't qualify for the last World Cup, but until I was 23, right? So all those years of, like, my youth, America doesn't play in the World Cup. It's just not what we do. It's, we play other things. And then suddenly, when I'm already out of college, we qualify for the World Cup in Italy in 1990, which is... I didn't, and then we go on this run, and now we've failed, which again seems terrible. But the Italians aren't going. I mean, it's not the end of the world to fail in a cycle of getting into a World Cup. Losing the first 2 games is why we didn't get in the World Cup. We should not have lost both of those. We should have lost maybe one, even draw in the second.
Loss and a draw, and we're in.
And we're in.
Yeah.
So we're blaming it all on Klinsmann.
I mean, Bruce could have won one of those last 2
Yeah,
games too.
I don't think Bruce is off the hook, but
both of them will be marred with that.
Bruce doesn't seem to care.
He does not care.
I mean, he's going to probably wind up as an MLS coach again in the future if he wants to.
So,
more power to him.
Speaking of that, we're going to grab Mickey for a sec if you're good to come chat with us. Mickey is our resident legal expert. And he just wanted to chat with us. We talked about Save the Crew and some of those things a few weeks ago, and he's got a quick update.
Excellent.
Friend of the show. And
hey, how's it going?
So we just wanted to sort of get an update. You've been tracking all this stuff. We watch your tweets.
Yes.
We read your posts. So what's happening?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's been a lot that's happened. Last week, we got the motion to dismiss from MLS of the entire Save the Crew lawsuit from the city and the state, basically outlining why the statute that they're arguing about, the Modell law, is not constitutional and violates any number of norms that people use to govern contracts, et cetera, such as the main one was that MLS, as we were discussing, is not actually 23 teams. It's actually one...
Correct. Entity.
Yeah, one entity. And they don't actually exist in the state of Ohio or in any state. They actually exist as a corporation in the state of Delaware, which is not overly surprising. Lots of companies are incorporated in the state of Delaware for various reasons. Right. But that's kind of the reason they're using to justify that the Modell law does not apply. There also is what is going to happen tomorrow, I think, based on what I've heard, is that the Save the Crew folks have filed a motion to toll the 6-month period. That's part of the whole thing that's going on, is basically you have to give notice that you're not going to play it map-free anymore, and then while you give that notice, there's 6 months for all the local buyers to come in and potentially buy the team. There's been some rumblings that that MLS is going to argue that the 6-month period has already elapsed.
Gone by, yeah.
Or at least is close to elapsing based on the notice that they gave. The Save the Crew folks, the city and the state, basically said, well, this period should be put on hold while this lawsuit is going on because they have to provide discovery so that local buyers can come in and purchase the team. MLS is supposed to file their motion tomorrow to, or actually, it was supposed to be filed today. I was doing my little refresh thing in the corner over there, waiting to see if the motion had come through. It has not as of yet. So we'll probably get it tomorrow. We'll see what they are going to use to justify that the 6-month period should not be put on hold. I don't know what they're going to argue. My guess is that they're going to say that there should be no delay of the 6-month period because they've already given notice, and therefore the clock should keep running.
Yeah.
But I do not know what they're going to say. They've been kind of secretive with their filings, which was the other thing, that they basically leaked their motion to dismiss to the Austin American-Statesman without providing a copy to the city and the state, and that caused a big kerfuffle I can tell you that one of the people I've been talking to was basically like his reaction was he was flabbergasted by the actions of the defendants. So we'll see. Their relationship's not on the best of ground at the moment,
For sure.
And so we'll see what happens with that motion when it gets filed tomorrow. But that's kind of where we are at this point. What's today? The 23rd?
23rd.
On the 3rd, they're supposed to have a status conference to see if how they're going to kind of handle all this stuff, because how many motions do we have? A motion to dismiss, a motion to toll the 6-month period, a motion to hold off on doing discovery. So all of that stuff has to get hammered out in some order or another over the next couple of weeks, because I don't know when that motion to dismiss is going to be argued. It could be in a month. It could be in 3 months. But again, that has certain implications on whether they can find a local owner to buy the team. And then there's also the fact that the city of Austin is doing their review of the site down there. So, the whole theory behind this is if Precourt can find a site down there and come to an agreement with the city of Austin, MLS, by the theory that they've outlined, can't prevent the move. He gets to move if he can reach a deal with Austin, because that's the whole Austin clause thing.
Right.
So that's kind of where we are. We'll see what happens tomorrow, and then on May 3rd, and then on June 1st. And then we'll kind of go from there.
It'll be interesting when they come to town.
Yeah,
in a couple weeks. So yeah, there's a lot more talk about this still on Twitter than I would have thought. People are digging in the weeds from on the legal stuff. So
keep it on the on a basic level, so it's not too deep in there. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now, and we'll see what happens. And then they're not on good terms right now.
Yeah,
I can tell you that. Yeah, it's not going to get better. It's probably going to get worse as far as the parties are concerned. So
it is not. So move on to some fun stuff closer to home. So first home game for LAFC on Sunday. You're going?
Yes,
I'm going. You're not going.
Most likely.
Adam, you going?
I'm still debating.
Going to LA?
I am working the pre-half and post-game show from the comfy Carter Volkswagen Subaru studios of KJR.
Okay.
950. Cool. So yes, I'll be there in spirit.
You will. We'll hear your dulcet tones.
The dulcet tones, yes.
So predictions. Adam, we'll start with you.
To what?
Sounders LAFC.
Yeah. 2 goals.
2 goals. That's all you're giving us?
2 of them.
Okay. 2.
Yes, 1 in each net.
Wow, okay.
That's my prediction.
All right. Got it. Mark, what do you got?
1 scarf to 0.
That is a wonderful response. I'm going to say 2-2.
I think the Sounders continue their unbeaten streak to 3 games,
wow.
But via the draw.
Okay.
1-1.
1 or 2?
1-1.
1-1. Okay.
I'm thinking they're going to get the revenge for the early season first game defeat. So I'm saying 2-1.
All right.
For the Sounders.
The LA teams seem to be on this weird comeback trail thing this year. So they had another barn burner the other day versus Montreal, during which, by the way, Piatti definitely should have gotten a red card, but whatever.
With his 3 goals?
Yeah, with his 3 goals that then were completely surpassed in the second half. It was like Tyler Miller yellow, another red. Like, what a disaster that game looked like. Although it might have been fun.
It was highly entertaining. I watched most of it, yeah.
As TV goes.
Tom, how many people did you say were traveling?
We have 172.
Seems
pretty good.
Respectable.
We're gonna not tell them that. Yeah. So they have only given 100 tickets to the other supporters traveling, and we worked really hard to get 172 out of them. They've been really, really tight with other people. So we've heard other folks are trying to move on that, but yeah. So LA tends to get a few hundred typically.
Oh,
When it's
yeah,
been
at
Galaxy,
least,
even
at
like
least.
Chivas. Chivas USA, there were 250 going on a Saturday, and you could like fly in and out on Saturday if you wanted to. But I think it's going to be pretty cool. It is funny to talk to people who are like, you guys are all excited to be in our new stadium on the first day. And we're like, we literally don't care at all. Like, can we see the game and can we bring flags? That's pretty much like the questions. So, all the flags, as it were. So, Wade, thank you very much for joining us here tonight.
My pleasure.
Do you have anything that you would like to ask of our listeners, viewers, guests here at the bar? Anything you'd like to say or ask them to do on your behalf? Venmo, Wade.
No.
No special
Sandbar.
requests.
Yeah,
Come to the Sandbar.
Sandbar.
May 24th.
Is that a Thursday? That's off the top of my head. The 24th.
I don't know.
But it's the Thursday before Memorial Day, 8 o'clock. The Sand Barbarians will be.
Yes, that is the Thursday.
Will be.
Hit it up.
Yeah, we'll be rolling.
So I think we will wrap it up. Unless anybody else has anything they want to add. Adam, did you queue up all that good stuff?
Yeah, I got some good stuff
All right.
to take us out on.
Cool.
All right, say goodnight, all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.